All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tea Time Talk. As usual, I am your host for the show. My name is Fritz, if you don't know that from before. Thank you so much for listening in. So a bit about the show before we start. This is a show where we discuss what's happened in the week. We discuss the news of the week for the first half, sort of big news stories that have happened, and then towards the second half we tend to have a bit of a chill session. So just before I introduce my guest, just a few things to run to. If you want to be involved in the conversation, you could use the hashtag LCRTTTalk if you want to get involved, if you have an opinion or view matter that you'd like to share with us, and we could read it out loud. We'll keep everything anonymous, of course. But if you would like to get involved in the conversation, use the hashtag LCRTTTalk on Twitter. And as always, a disclaimer that anything that is mentioned on this show is of our opinions, that it doesn't reflect the radio show or the university. This is just a bunch of friends having a chat and talking about what's happening in the news. So, again, Ruben isn't here with us today. Ruben's gone home for the weekend, but I am joined by Nezar. So how you doing there, Nezar?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me on, Fritz.
Welcome. It's good to have you on. So we have a good time out here. We chill.
Indeed, this is going to be our first episode without our boy.
Without the boy Ruben. So no Ruben rants this week, unfortunately.
No, we're replacing it with Fritz's rants.
Maybe we'll see if that happens towards the second half of the show. But again, yes, what we do in the first half is we talk about news of the week. So Nezar, do you have any sort of news stories that you want to bring up, or should I bring up a few things here?
I mean, briefly just going to bring up the apparently temperatures are going to get incredibly bad. Freezing temperatures grip UK with snow and sleet expected. Apparently it was as early as Saturday, but we're feeling it fine over here. Apparently it's early in the morning, so that's just a small thing to tell everyone that you should probably be expecting a lot of cold weather coming up soon.
So dress up nice and warm then.
Yeah, apparently it's going to be messing with schedules maybe.
Yeah.
But I doubt we're going to get anything as bad as like one of the ones that happened in like 2010, 2011. I forgot what it was.
Oh god, that one. I remember the one in 2011. It was terrible.
Yeah, that cancelled, for us it cancelled school for a week. I doubt we're going to get that bad again, but you never know. Just wrap up. It's getting to December and it's probably going to last till February.
The storm that shut down the UK.
Yeah, so that was just a small thing to talk about. You can go with your first topic.
Okay, so again, thank you for the nice update regarding the weather. Remember to dress up nice and warmly. Sort of the first topic that I would go with is, of course, that Robert Mugabe has stepped down as president of Zimbabwe. And he announced his resignation after a 37-year rule. He announced his resignation, and now the person that is taking over... Hold on, let's see if I can find his name, because I actually brought something so I can fact check things now. I don't know how to say his name. Nangwa. I'm gonna say it like that. But Nangwa has succeeded Mugabe, is now the president of Zimbabwe. This comes again, as we mentioned last week, as people were in opposition to his wife, to Mugabe's wife being the one that's taken the power. And I just want to ask Nezar, what's your opinion on this now? So, do you think this is going to be a change for Zimbabwe?
I'm really happy that the wife thing didn't go through, because as you heard last week, I was very against the idea. Yeah. I'm not fond of just the idea of especially family passing on power. Not a big fan at all. I guess you could say monarchies do that, but not to the same degree, really.
Monarchies is a bit different.
Yeah, it's not to the same degree. At this point, it's more of a, the government make the decisions more so. So yeah, it's like if we had a situation in the UK where Theresa May's kid was the next one in power. It'd make no sense. That's why I was against it at the time, and I'm still against it now. So hearing that somebody's actually come on instead, I'm really happy that's happened. Will he be a good leader? Well, we have to wait to see, don't we? Yeah.
Do you think so? Do you think it's going to be like a Mugabe light, or do you think he's actually going to bring about massive change?
At this point, I could not see massive. It seems like it's just more of the same, I'd say, because I don't know how much they could change from the situation they're in. I mean, a lot of people weren't happy about in the situation that he was in, the previous ruler, he was mixed in general, wasn't he? Reactions to him. There was people who really liked him, people who...
Well, the people who liked him tend to be in the military, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it's going to be a similar thing.
Right.
If the military don't have a problem with it, then it's going to be a similar thing. If they do, they're just, they're going to coup or something.
They're going to kill. Do you think this will be like the beginning of an upstage or an uprising in sub-Saharan Africa against political leaders that are really sort of, up there and abusing their power? Because of course there is quite a lot of sub-Saharan African leaders who abuse their power. What do you think about that?
That's a really good question, and honestly, I don't know, because stuff like that in Africa, like leaders abusing their power, that's been happening for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And the problem with, and you'd think not, but those leaders, it's just weird to see that kind of situation happen, because like those countries are already in situations where they're not financially stable at all, and their people are suffering to begin with, and then you're putting like a leader who's not really like feeling for their people or like caring about like how their people are in like a financial kind of point. It's just weird to see that kind of thing. You'd think that I'd personally think that like a poorer place would try kind of have like a leader who's more sympathetic, but that's just not the case, because once you give somebody too much power, even if they start off poor, I guess they can like latch on to that kind of thing. So honestly, no, I don't see it coming to an end anytime soon. I think it's going to be similar to before. To a person with too much power treats the military good, obviously, because you have to treat the military good, because the only people that are going to get you off that is at that point is the military.
Right.
A lot of the times, with coups and stuff, the military end up turning on their leader. So as long as you have the military under your thumb, then you can basically do whatever you want. So yeah, I don't know much about him personally, but in terms of how it's set up, it looks like more of the same to me.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because of course, see, when I look at Africa, or when I look at countries in Africa and see how the power displays are, how people who are in poverty are actually suffering a hell of a lot worse, compared to, well, let's say how we are suffering over here, but that's subjective if you're suffering or not. But even when a country or a nation is poor, you will still see the abuse of power when the money is invested, because a lot of these leaders have connections with countries that aren't in Africa, or France or Germany or Spain or whatever country that was post-colonial, from colonial times, connections established from colonial times onwards to today. And a lot of those, arguably from what I've witnessed, again, from what I've seen, arguably a lot of those countries, a lot of those leaders tend to have connections with these countries and with the colonial countries, and they tend to work together, not necessarily for the better of the country, but for the better of the colonial country, at the expense of the country that's suffering.
I could see that being the case, because you keep somebody that you want in power, they can benefit your country. Then I think we discussed this last week as well, about like other countries not wanting to interfere in like country issues because their leader might benefit those other countries, so that they're not interfering with how their country is run.
The whole neutrality thing that we're talking about.
Yes. It seems like many times that a country would only ever interfere if that country was affecting them, or like it got to a global scale where people were like, look how horrible that is, and it became a big thing. But until then, like dictatorships in Africa and stuff, probably going to stay there, because if they're helping and have connections with the countries that you've mentioned, then they have no reason to take them off.
But the problem is how rare this becomes a global thing, because this Zimbabwe thing came out of nowhere. In my opinion, it came out of nowhere. I didn't know it was happening. It just suddenly happened that Mugabe was suddenly hiding out or being removed or something. But there's so much going on, but it's not told about at all. We don't see it on the BBC. We'll see something like an attack has happened in a African country, but we will never learn about their political instability or the corruption or the amount of destruction or the fact that the citizens are suffering in the country.
I think it's hard to rely on like news stations that represent, I guess, the country's views. Would that be alright to say? Because like something like the BBC is a very big, the primary for Britain, basically. So like if like the country didn't want to, I'm not saying Britain doesn't necessarily want to, but let's take as an example, if the country doesn't want that news to hit, then the BBC probably wouldn't report it.
Right.
That's my opinion anyway. I think that's more smaller, more independent kind of stations, do you know what I mean? Or just independent reporters that kind of like want to spread the word, but obviously it's not making big TV because a lot of people don't want that to be said, because it might be benefiting the country at hand.
We've discussed this in class actually, that a lot of news is ignored because it doesn't sell well. So a lot of stuff that's happening in the UK, yeah, you'll see that up, or a lot of stuff that's happening in like a European country, you'd see that up on the BBC. But something that happens in Africa, you wouldn't see because there isn't, one, an emotional connection to anyone in Africa, and two, because there isn't any sort of economical gain from posting a news story about something happening in Africa. Because you just see them as people, you don't see them as relevant to you. You just see them as another, like, you know, when the BBC takes pictures of something happening in Africa or something, you look at the picture and you say, oh, that's sad, but you don't necessarily feel anything. You don't necessarily see anything in that. You're not there. You're not. You can't identify with that environment because you've never been there. You haven't seen what it's like. So, of course, the BBC wouldn't want to put something like that on because it's not going to make them any money. It's not something that's going to linger. It's not something that's going to keep getting them views.
Of course. I agree with that 100%, and I definitely think that if it's not getting you views and stuff, you're not going to show it to its fullest, like, bad, like, the problems with the country. You'll probably bring up points like, oh, you know, bad things happened in this country or something like that. But, like, if it got to a situation where like it benefited the country to send that message and to say and speak about that news story, they'd probably go into way more detail. They'd probably be a bit more with the content would probably be a bit more like showing the bigger picture kind of thing, maybe a bit more graphic, who knows, just to get people invested in that kind of news story. I could see that happening.
It is a bit sad though.
It is, because it's weird that the news itself has to be treated like a business. That's what it is, isn't it?
We're meant to trust the news, but instead it's like a business to us.
Well, that's why everyone in Britain themselves always argue on like what's the best source of the news. Everyone gets it from different places.
Yeah.
Nobody like you won't run into a lot of people who say the exact same thing. There's people who, you know, there's people obviously who like BBC, there's people who like The Guardian, but I've known people, especially a lot of politics students, that won't go for like
any of them.
Yeah, it would go for something like Russia Today or Al Jazeera or something, you know, like something that's less afraid to show more content. And
and we have to, because I argue that's a fair point, because we have to, because a lot of the news is coming from the perspective that an ideological perspective of the West, or whatever you want to call it, the UK, America, whatever that's beneficial to that ideology.
Yeah. Well, I imagine as like a politics student that you'd have to kind of like check a lot of news sources.
You have to be skeptical.
Yeah.
Like you have to check a lot of news sources, but you have to be skeptical about everything you read, because of course everything you read has some maybe potentially an agenda to it.
Yeah.
Or an ideological setting behind it, which is why we're told to read a variety of different news sources.
So would you say something like the more TV stations or stuff like the BBC, would you say they're more aimed at like not the people who are super into news or politics, but more just the casual, like, oh, look on TV that this is happening in the news?
I would say that it's still BBC is still for people who want to know about news.
Yeah.
It's just that when you watch the news, you have to read it with a hint of skepticism about why they're saying it in this particular way.
Okay.
Why this is being portrayed in that particular way.
Yeah.
And it comes back to the whole ideological agenda, fake or whatnots, and how things are presented in the news. For example, I could sit down and I could watch the BBC. I could watch the BBC and say, okay, you know, say a story about a knife crime, a gun and a stabbing on the streets of London. I could watch that and I'd say, okay, that's news. But I'd have to question myself later and be like, why exactly would they have put that story on compared to something that's happening in, say, Bolivia or something? I'd be forced to question myself and say, what exactly are they trying to tell me here?
So would you say then that stuff like the BBC is more better for local kind of news, and then you go for other sources for global news? Would you say that's better?
See, that's the thing, because BBC is quite global. It is quite global.
It is
already.
quite global, but I'm saying in terms of like the how it's presented. Because you said you didn't really like the fact that like it will make a smaller deal of like a different country issue.
Well, that just comes back to what sells.
Yeah.
In regards to it, it's not necessarily that they make a smaller issue of another country's problem. They'll acknowledge that there's a problem in another country, but because it doesn't sell, they won't have it on. So maybe I'd have to open up another news source and read something about that. Read it from there instead. So there's a variety of different news sources that I use to try and get a sort of a global idea.
That's fair.
And again, even when we do this radio show, a lot of the stories that we pick up is because of what we read here.
Well, it's true. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I guess the final conclusion to that news thing is definitely check your news sources from many places, because the one place probably there's going to be a different station that probably provides it better.
One station says it one way, the other station says it another.
Yeah, and there's definitely stuff like, especially as I was saying earlier, when you see stuff like politics students, the ones I'm a lot of the time friends with, I've never heard a lot of UK ones, as I've heard stuff like Russia Today and Al Jazeera. And as somebody who's seen Russia Today and Al Jazeera on and off, they seem to present their stuff a lot more, like, they don't hold back a lot of the stuff they present.
No, they're quite critical.
That, and not only are they quite critical, they're quite graphic in terms of what they will show.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, that could also be, in a way, let's go back to the business discussion, that is good business in a sense that that's making the audience like feel for like what's happening on screen.
Right.
Like, and that might get somebody more invested than something like, oh, this bad thing happened in a country. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, is it bad to show the super bad severity of it? Like, here's dead, like bodies and stuff like that. Would you say that that's like going too far in one direction?
Oh, see, I don't know. I don't know what I would say to that, because okay, you have on the one side that you don't show dead bodies, you don't show images of people dying or suffering or something like. Because again, you're a business and you want to maintain a certain image. Yeah, you don't want to portray that to children. If the children are watching news, again, and it goes down back to the whole YouTube Kids thing we were having last week. But you don't want to necessarily portray that to people because it's very graphic and it's very not okay. But again, that's ideological. Yeah. If Russia says, we can show if Russia today says we can show dead bodies because we believe that people have the stomach enough to see and need to actually see this with their own eyes, that's fair on them. That's their station. Any sort of reaction that comes from that is upon them, not necessarily upon us for watching it. It's not a reaction to the BBC for not showing something. If you get what I mean, because
I get what you're saying.
I'm sounding conflicting to myself. But again, it depends on the station. Yeah. That's all I can say, is it depends on the station and what they want to portray.
I guess so. I was just more getting at because something like the BBC is showing on a more grander scale, that's probably more better than showing the violent imagery. I guess if you're used to it though, they're probably people who grow up in those countries are probably used to because you grow up with that kind of news, you're probably used to seeing stuff like more graphic content. Yeah. So I guess it wouldn't be good to put that stuff on British TV.
We'll see. Maybe one of these channels will probably pull it out. Maybe ITV. ITV News showing you actual dead bodies since 2017. Nah, I'm joking. Right. Let's move it on to the next big news story. Now, the next big one is something that has been posted almost everywhere I've been on the internet. So Reddit, YouTube. Okay, that's it. Reddit and YouTube, that's it.
Yeah, two big. Well, more YouTube than Reddit,
But this big thing is affecting America in particular. Again, ideological news sources. But this one is affecting America in particular, and it's called net neutrality, or the fight for the net neutrality.
Do tell.
So, hold on, let me scroll down here. So, let's see, in 2000, something's happened in 2017. So in January 2017, Ajit Ajit Pai was appointed the new FCC commissioner by the Trump administration. In April, Pai proposed a repeal against net neutrality rules that that was enacted under Obama administration. So what net neutrality ensues is the protection, so the government regulation of the internet, or government regulation of what businesses can do on the internet. So if you remove net neutrality, it allows businesses to regulate themselves and manage themselves. Oh, hello.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
that was weird.
That was new. Anyway, so what net neutrality does is, I've got this. I know it's it's disappeared on me now, which is great. Here's the definition of it. Net neutrality is a network design principle and digital rights movement which advocates internet service providers to treat all internet traffic equally in order to maintain an open internet. The principle is in opposition to a closed internet, in which providers restrict access to content, filler content, and use of traffic shaping. So net neutrality means that internet service providers, so I don't know, in the UK, TalkTalk, BT, Sky, whichever one you use, have to ensure that all websites are have the same bandwidth, same internet connection, same speeds, same everything. If you go on YouTube, your videos won't buffer compared to if you go to Netflix and watch something on Netflix. You get it?
I get you.
Okay. So this is what they want to remove in America. They want to make it so that companies have the power to decide which websites will get more speed and which sites won't get more speed depending on which company pays. So let's say Netflix can stream faster if it's going with Verizon, because if it's owned by Verizon or something, because that's an American telephone company, I think, or AT&T. So let's say Netflix is hypothetically owned by Verizon. I don't know if it is, but then Verizon can make Netflix speed faster than compared to YouTube. So you'll be more tempted to go towards watching stuff on Netflix rather than on YouTube. And what they'll do is, if you want to have YouTube at the same speed as Netflix, they'll charge you more for it. What do you think of that?
I was originally going to say, by removing the restriction on the bandwidth, I was actually going to say what the downside was. But then if you can make a buck off it, I guess... If you can make money off it, then I guess you could. That is a big downside, isn't it?
Yeah.
For us, not necessarily the companies owning it. Oh, jeez. That is a good one.
We have examples of this, I believe, in Portugal already, where they charge you money to use certain websites. So if you want to do, they have catalogs. So if you want to do music catalog, you get Google Play Music, you get Spotify, but you have to pay €5 a month or something.
Okay.
And then
hear me out.
Yeah, go on.
It's say you're unlocking the max amount of bandwidth and all that I can go up to. So stuff like Netflix is no longer restricted in terms of how it can.
Oh, they're not restricted now.
Oh, I know, but it's to make it stream faster, right?
No. It'll still be. So what it'll do is it's just allowing companies to decide which one's faster and which one isn't.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Really? That sounds terrible. That's a terrible idea.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So
if you watch YouTube now, it'll still stream the same speed, but if TalkTalk says no, then they'll slow down YouTube and make you go to somewhere else. Of course, this is not going to happen in the UK, because if it does, that's a bad thing.
People would make a really big deal about that.
The internet is
basically society now, I'd say. I'd say way more so than...
the internet is society, Nezar 2017.
If television was the big thing that the 90s revolved around, then internet is definitely the 2010s.
Right.
I'd say so. And 2000s was just that transition era.
Right.
We rely too much on it, and YouTube is one of the biggest platforms on the internet at the moment. Mm-hmm. You can't restrict, and video streaming in general, you can't restrict what goes at what speed, because one, that's showing some kind of bias, because that's going to want you to get because then companies could theoretically make deals with these companies and be like, hey, slow down all the other ones and let us be, the fastest. Or in the case of YouTube, slow us down, and then people will have to pay more to unlock
get faster. Yeah,
that sounds terrible. That sounds like it's a business decision, isn't it?
It is. Again, there's been a backlash against Pi, the person who's behind this. The backlash has been immense, I'd say.
It sounds like it would be immense, and at the end of the day, everyone's going to say, in society, you can make a business off anything.
Right.
At one point, electricity could have been free, but then somebody looked at it and said, hey, I can make money off of this.
But everything, but the internet already is a business.
That's the problem.
It already is, and it sucks, particularly for the US, because they don't have the same sort of internet service providers that we have here in the UK. They have I believe they have 3 main huge companies that basically rule the entire country. And they can just collude amongst themselves to mess one certain website over or another website over, or start charging massive, people geographically in America, the internet hasn't been set up quite well. They have terrible internet geography where in some areas you're forced to go with a certain company.
Yeah.
So if that company says, oh, I'm going to slow down Hulu Plus because we want Netflix, I'm going to slow down Netflix because we want Hulu to be better.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be forced to pay for Netflix if that's something you use often.
Yeah, and the problem is you're already paying like subscriptions to Netflix. You're already paying your monthly fees for the internet in itself, and now on top of that they would add another payment in restricting what speed that the videos you watch can go at. That's stupid. That's another dumb business decision by somebody who just doesn't understand convenience for the people.
Well,
I'd say
it's a financial decision. They want to make money off it.
It is a financial decision, but it sounds like somebody privileged that's just like, hey, I can make more money off this. Stupid.
So would you say that this I don't think the law's been passed yet. I think they're going to have a vote in December. But would you believe it's going to pass?
No. I mean,
don't you believe that the financial, the money that the Senate can earn off of this, or the Congress, or whichever one everyone's taking a vote on this? I believe it's
it would benefit the country, wouldn't it?
Well, it would benefit them. It would benefit the leaders financially.
Yeah, but I still would say no. We rely way too much on the internet at this point.
Right.
I'd say. Also, to be honest though, it'd be so easy to work around that kind of thing. People would just start watching on illegal sites.
But then the companies could slow those sites down.
I don't think they would though, right? Because they would only be access to like the big ones.
No. They can slow down whatever site. They can basically hype up the sites they want and then leave anything else in the dirt.
Oh dear. That's so... Well, as I said, I don't think it's gonna... So is a vote definitely happening?
A vote is definitely happening.
In this country?
In the US.
Oh, the US.
Yeah, this is only affecting the US. It's not happening in the UK. Oof. Thank God for that. However, to those that want to get involved, I don't know if this is US specific, but there is... this probably is US specific, where you can go on the Battle for Net Neutrality, urging users in the United States to call their Congress representative to vote in favor of net neutrality, so to maintain net neutrality. That way, website can't boost up a certain site because, it's terrible.
It is terrible. I don't think it's going to happen. Well, personally,
we've been shocked over the last 2 years. I've left it to just be like, I am not going to assume anything, because if the last 2 years have been evidence of anything, then
two biggest votes of the last 2 years
have been
both unpredictable options happened.
Well, one of them wasn't as unpredictable as the other, to be honest.
Brexit?
No.
Okay.
Trump.
Oh, come on, nobody thought that.
No, I mean, if you're gonna pick between the devil and the deviless, I wouldn't vote for any of them. I don't like either of them.
Yeah, neither do I.
But if you want to pick between someone who earns money off the death of people in Africa and the other one who just opens up their mouth a lot and is like a massive financial powerhouse and's probably done the same thing, why would you pick any? I wasn't surprised by that election.
So you would say Brexit was the more unpredictable?
Yeah, Brexit.
I don't think anybody thought the thing happened with that thing was going to happen with Brexit, but people are still complaining about it to this day. So what can you do? We
shall stray away from that topic because we have talked about that enough on this show.
Indeed.
Right. Okay. So moving on. The other big thing that's happened is the UK budget.
Yay. Which
means money talks money, how this affects you as a human being, as a person. So the Philip Hammond, who is the Chancellor, has delivered his budget. And in that budget, I'm just going to give you a rundown and see what you think of it. So the National Health Service, Hammond has promised an additional 2.8 billion over 3 years. With an immediate injection of 350 million. Stamp duty, so this is, for first-time buyers, it's not going to be stamp duty for if you buy a house underneath £300,000. I believe that's what it says.
Okay.
Housing, Hammond promised a 44 billion capital investment to boost the housing market, so that by the mid-2020, there should be over 300,000 homes built every year. Is that? He's also thinking about potentially putting on a new tax on single-use plastic items.
Huh?
Yes.
Single-use plastic items, like what?
Like packaging and polystyrene takeaway boxes.
Oh dear.
But he hasn't come to that decision yet. The national living wage will rise by 4.4% from £7.50 to £7.83 per hour from April 2018. if that actually makes a difference, because that doesn't seem like it helps when inflation is a thing.
Yeah.
Income tax. The basic rate income tax threshold rises from £11,501 to £11,850, which I'm guessing means you're paying more income tax.
Yeah.
And the one that affects us probably the most, apart from all of these, is there's going to be a millennial rail card.
Excuse me? Excuse me?
The 26 to 30 national rail card will be introduced next spring.
What is it?
What that does is, I think that reduces... Oh, I don't have internet connection, so I can't read it. Oh, lol. What that does is it is introducing cheaper costs for people who are 26 to 30.
Dope.
So, okay, oh, here it goes. The so-called Millennial Rail Card will go on sale in spring 2018, priced at £30. Holders will be entitled to discounts of up to 1/3 from off-peak train services. There you go.
26 to 30?
Yeah, so this is basically because there's already one called... There's already a Young Rail Card that goes from 18 to 25. So after that, the 26...
That's called the Millennial Rail Card.
Yeah, the 26 to 30 is called Millennial Rail.
We're millennials. We should get that rail card too.
I guess. I don't know. Well, maybe
I mean, if we already have a young one, then I don't care.
you could apply for it if you want.
So it doesn't sound like a lot of downsides to this whole thing.
Well, again, remember, read into everything, because
Yeah,
just
true.
how financially, just how much is that actually going to help?
The single-use plastic items doesn't sound too bad.
He said
Of all the things you could tax, that seems pretty harmless for the most part.
well, he said that the success of the 5p plastic bag carrier, you know, the carrier bags, the fact that
which everyone like at the time made a big deal of. It's 5p, folks. Just come on.
hey, 5p is a lot of money if you keep buying plastic bags. I'm telling you that
How
much.
often do you need to buy plastic bags? I do my shopping once a week.
Yeah, I do my shopping once a week too, and
There you go.
I always have the
5p
bag on me.
5p a week. That's fine.
5p a week. Why don't you do the maths? 0.05 times by 365. Go on.
Not 365. We're only buying it once a week.
Oh yeah, so time by 52.
Okay. Well.
Oh god. Well, while he does the maths, I will give some other stats. Cars are affected as well.
How so?
Diesel cars that fail to meet the air quality standards will incur an additional tax from April 2018. And there will also be extra funds and tax incentives for electric cars, including a $400 million a year charging infrastructure fund. So we're due with the... Where are you cheating over there?
No, I was. Oh well, yeah.
Well, what is it? What's the answer then?
£2.60.
£2.60. So that's £2.60 you could have saved a year.
Oh dear.
You know, imagine that, £2.60 a year. That's quite a lot of money there. You could buy, like, I don't know, what can you buy with that? A drink at the Union? I don't know.
What if you buy like a drink at the Union every week? There you go. The 5p thing wasn't a big issue. I don't get why anyone had issue with it. People stealing bags. Come on, people.
Okay, so back to the budget. What's your opinion on the budget? You've heard the details. You've heard the deets. What are we thinking?
It sounds, for the most part, that it's not going to benefit the country too much, but at the same time, it's harmless. I don't think we should make a big deal about these things being taxed. It's not like he went for anything that affects a large, like, grand, like, amount of people, I'd say.
I look at this and I think I think not much is going to change because
I don't think so either. If it's gonna give more money to the country whilst not being a big deal to anyone, then go for it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like it's going to be necessarily beneficial for anyone.
No, not really.
It seems
It just sounds like a lot of small inconveniences, but only minor.
I'd describe it as meh.
Yeah, only minor inconveniences, like the plastic bag thing. We move on to single-use plastic items now. Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, I guess. I'm just thinking because in terms of real wages and real money, this isn't necessarily going to help a lot of people. It's just going to be like, oh, you know, hey, that's nice.
Yeah.
Not much has changed.
Exactly. I don't know. Maybe it'll rack up, and like it will in the long run, but it's definitely not on the same level as like the internet one you brought up earlier. That sounds like
only affects America though.
Thank God.
Well, you never know. Theresa May seems to like following in America's footsteps, so she might just bring over net neutrality argument over here.
True, but if it doesn't happen in America, then it won't happen here. I don't think it's going to happen. But as I said, we've been shocked before.
It's been quite Quite a challenging last 2 years. Twitter reactions. You want to have a look at Twitter reactions to the budget?
Sounds awesome.
Okay, let's go through that. Oh, I ain't got no internet. No, this ain't gonna work. Okay, so, right, back to the budget. So, of course, this is gonna be the next budget for the foreseeable future, until probably next year when we get an update. My opinion, in regards to the NHS, I think the NHS needs a hell of a lot more than that.
Oh, the NHS. Oh,
2.8 billion over 3 years.
At this point, is the NHS going to recover, or is it going to get to a point where it's gone?
Oh, I think, well...
I'm leaning more towards it's gone. Yeah, I don't think that...
Or it's going to be the most minimal NHS ever.
Yeah.
It's going to be something where you pay your national insurance, but you're going to see a private company anyway.
Yeah. How long would you give it?
Well, how long do we have left of Conservatives? We have another 5 years now, don't we?
Yeah.
So I'd give it 5 years.
Are you serious? So I guess the only way to save it would be if...
Well, they've been chopping at it piece by piece. They've been chopping at the NHS piece by piece.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, if something happens that shakes up the entire foundation of the political climate to the point where we actually get another vote, which I say highly unlikely, but hey, you never know.
I guess their logic is if America can do without it, why can't we?
Have you seen the American healthcare system? It's terrible.
Yeah, true, but...
It's the worst thing. People are dying instead of going to their doctor. People are actually dying. No.
I know, yeah, it's bad. It is really bad, that's the thing.
Never ever in my life.
I thought in America, if you're in a really bad situation, like you needed surgery, they'd have to give it you. It's just that you'd be like in debt.
You'd be in debt for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but surely that's better than just dying.
Well, some people are thinking no, because if you're in debt throughout your entire life, you'd pass away. It passed on to your family.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
We don't adopt that then.
You know the internet one that we were talking about, the net neutrality?
Yeah.
That's basically the American healthcare system. That's what's going to happen. They're going to charge you so much to get something that... would you argue we consider internet a basic necessity at this point?
Yeah, definitely.
You can't apply for jobs without the internet.
No.
You can't access emails, or you can't even establish communications with people that you might need, like a doctor or something, like a GP or something, without the internet now.
Yeah.
So I'd consider it a basic necessity at this point.
I'd say so too.
Unless we go back to the ways of paper, which I quite miss, or the ways of having to walk into a job centre plus.
Yeah.
Oh God. But yeah. So it's basically turning a basic necessity into a profit, into a multi-million thing. That's what the American healthcare system is.
Yeah, I'd really hope we wouldn't get to a situation like that. And even if the NHS is gone, I don't think we necessarily they'd probably find some kind of alternative to that rather than go full out with America. You'll be in debt.
As in move to France.
Or Canada.
Yeah.
Canada's free healthcare is probably going to last a lot longer, isn't it?
Canada's healthcare will probably last a lot longer than the UK's one if we go at current rates.
I don't think it'll only be 5 years, though. I think the NHS is going to last a bit longer than that.
Well, I think the label of NHS is still going to exist, but boy, is it not going to be the NHS we knew from a while back.
Just don't get in an accident.
Are you telling that to me? Or?
Just in general. Easier said than done, I know.
Is that a threat? Or just don't get in an accident for it. Everything will be okay. Just don't get in an accident.
Just don't injure yourself. How do the people of America go outside their houses and like live a life knowing that they could be injured and like...
Well, if there's anyone
in like a lifelong debt.
If there's anyone from America that wants to tweet at us or tell us how it's like in America, use the hashtag LCRTT Talk and let us know. Because people from what I've seen, people in America, what they do is they work. They will work, but they'll also continue working even when they have an injury. You know, or they'll patch themselves up, or they'll go to...
Aren't jobs usually insured?
Well, some jobs are. Oh, yeah, most jobs will give you healthcare
and dental. A lot of them will.
And then some of them won't. And then those, or the ones that, because there are some companies that won't give you healthcare, and you want to.
So in America, I guess the only ones that would give you healthcare would be jobs that you'd earn with like degrees and stuff.
No, there's quite a few jobs out there. For quite a few companies. Most companies tend to, but there's like the off chance, like maybe a workers company or a building company or something might not. But again, it's.
Don't the workers then just strike and ask for healthcare?
No, because I think they get paid more so that they can actually pay for their healthcare. Again, I don't know how the American system works.
What's the downside?
The downside is once you get hurt, you get charged so much money you probably will be in debt for the rest of your life. Welcome to student finance, the American version.
Yeah, exactly.
Healthcare finance.
Oh no, oh dear.
Yeah. But okay, I guess we'll leave it there for now and take a bit of a break. And then we'll be back in the second half and we'll have a bit more of a chill time. So we will put on some songs for you and we'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
You're listening to LCR. LCR.
Hello, we're back. Oh, sorry, that sounded a bit intense.
Hi, we're back. Ugh.
That hurt my ears. But hello, yes, we are back. Hope you had a nice little relaxing break. So again, just a bit of a thing. Sorry if you didn't hear any news stories that you wanted to be covered. Again, we're just going through news stories that we've picked up. And sorry if you didn't
send them in.
Yeah, send them in using the Twitter wall, so the hashtag LCRTT Talk if you're interested. And we'll try and talk about them maybe next week if you want. Or if you bring them up.
That'd be very interesting.
Yeah. So, the second half of the show is where we tend to have a bit more of a chill session. We tend to talk to each other about things that are interesting to us, things that we've picked up. So, I'll leave it over to you, Nezar. There won't be a Ruben rant this week because Ruben's clearly not here, but, maybe there'll be a Nezar rant or a Fritz rant. We'll see.
Okay, so Black Friday is a very well-known time of year, every year. And it's basically, in its simplest form, shops like to lower the prices. A lot of people would say ridiculously lower the prices so that you can get stuff really cheap. It's probably one of the busiest times of year for shopping. Right before Christmas too. Is it usually always the same calendar month, or does it change every year?
It's always the day after Thanksgiving. So if Thanksgiving is consistent on the same day, then yes. It is. It does tend to be in the lead up towards Christmas.
Yeah, okay. That seems a little too convenient because then you have the Christmas shopping next month. So yeah, basically it's been lowering the prices so that you can buy stuff for a lower price. On paper, this sounds great. In practice, not so much. The thing is, there's been a lot of and this happens every year, so it's not new news particularly, but it has been happening this year too. There's been a lot of attacks to other customers fighting over stuff in the stores.
Yep.
Over stuff because the stuff sells out relatively quickly, so you're there fighting over the last
flat screen TV,
or something like that, and it just goes to show as consumers how bad we can let people or stores and companies manipulate us, because there are rumors, right, that they're not actually truly lowering the prices. Is that the case?
What some businesses tend to do is that in the weeks leading up to Black Friday, they tend to increase their prices and then lower them when Black Friday comes so that they'll be at the normal level it was before. So let's say you want to buy a tablet. The tablet costs £75. It usually costs £75, but then all of a sudden it's £100, and then Black Friday comes and it's back down to £75. That's what some businesses tend to do.
Is there evidence of this?
Not that it's
truly some people probably would have
people have tweeted pictures, some people have said this and that, bibs and bobs.
Well, if that's the case, that's a really scummy thing to do.
Well, welcome to capitalism. We do everything like that.
That is really scummy, because it's a good marketing technique. It's a brilliant marketing technique. People fall for it every year.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't particularly as I said, I just find it scummy that that they'd let people do that. And honestly, even though they're bad, I think we as the people buying it, we're worse, because we're doing this and we're letting this get to us, and it's becoming really, really violent to the point where people are attacking each other, and over the last flat screen TV. It's okay.
Well,
Christmas is coming up.
What it highlights to me is the strength of consumerism in people.
It's become too much. It's part of our society,
where we will stand up and fight to get something because it's cheaper. We will fight. We will stand up and punch someone or hurt someone. I'm not saying we will. I'm not saying us. We do. I'm saying I've seen this in America from people posting videos about it. from what's happening on Black Friday. People not necessarily punching each other, but climbing over each other, running each other over, grasping and throttling and going ham. And I'm pretty sure it happens in the UK too. I'm pretty sure it happens here, where people are going ham at each other. A bit like you injected them with a massive virus that makes them all fight, you know, fighty fights things. I'm pulling weird faces in the studio, but you see like a combination of people just running at each other, grabbing things, pushing other people away, pushing to grab things, doing that, doing this, and it's all in the sake of consumerism.
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous to actually be around those general areas when stuff like that's happening. Like, I know apparently up in Nottingham it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
like in terms of how busy it was, and like maybe not violent, but definitely busy. And like maybe it did get violent, I wouldn't know. But yeah, I just don't like the side that it represents of like people, like just that like really scummy side just to get something. Like it's just material things, isn't it?
It is material things,
not
but
stuff they need.
It's arguable. Some of the things we need, some of the things we don't. And when you see this, or when you see this all the time, and like where they charge you £1,000 or something for a new TV or a new headset, and it's finally £500, it's like, well, you might why not?
Yeah.
Because if they're going to, why would they sell it at £1,000 if they can sell it for £500 and still make a profit?
Well, does Black Friday extend to the internet?
It does massively. Cyber Monday is a thing where the Amazon and eBay tend to go ham on selling things at a low price as well.
Is there anything going on today?
Today's Saturday. Oh, well, it goes on for the entire week, so yeah.
Okay.
Probably. There'll still be things going on.
Better check that out later.
I love how you was like, oh, this is a dangerous thing, and yet here you are saying, yeah, I'm going to go look at that.
Well, I was actually going to bring up a point on the internet. That's actually alright, isn't it?
Is it?
Is it not? Because then you're avoiding stuff like violence and like the actual part where you're like fighting with other people.
So you're arguing Black Friday is negative on the basis of it causes violence and attacks against and fights within people. Is that why?
That's why I don't like it. The sales side of it is scummy. Right. That's the thing.
Right.
But that's your fault if you buy it. That's not necessarily the company's fault. That's my opinion anyway. Because that's your choice if you want to buy it or not.
So if a company suddenly upscales and then downscales their price, it's not the company's fault for using, they're still going to get a profit.
It's shady tactics, but you as the consumer should know better.
Okay.
It's not like the microtransactions thing of last week, like we discussed. It's not a similar thing.
No, that's just straight up just no.
This is we're messing with you. You know we're messing with you. What are you going to do about it?
Right. And what would the micro? Is that the micro?
No, that's the Black Friday one.
What would the micro one be then?
Buy it to win. Buy it to play the game.
Buy it because we're not going to let you play the game.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's like a lot of that's like pay to win. So obviously it's a different situation. But the stuff with Black Friday is the consumers themselves should be aware of stuff like what the companies are doing, and people like me who never like buy on Black Friday anyway.
Right.
Because to me it's just everyone else it's Black Friday. To me it's just, hey, look, another day I could buy something but I don't want to.
It's just a normal Friday.
Even lowered, it's beyond my budget, to be honest. I'm a university student.
We are so poor we can't even afford Black Friday.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's not going to benefit us anyway.
A slice of toast is 50p off. Great, still can't buy it. Well, it's an interesting point that you raise up the internet side of things versus the physical side of things, because it relates to, well, I would say it relates to one of the things that was happening in the news recently, which was this sort of Oxford Circus station thing that happened. I think it was yesterday or like the day, yesterday.
Do go on.
Well, I don't even know what happened. There was just a massive buzz around Oxford Street about someone apparently heard shots being fired. The police showed up immediately, and this is in the middle of Black Friday, where people are gonna go to Oxford Street to go shopping, to go buy things very cheaply, right?
Yeah. So
hearing this, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Hearing something like, well, we're not going to assume it was a terror attack. We just heard someone said shots fired, but the police says that they didn't.
Were they saying it like, oh my god, shots were fired, or like somebody dissed someone there and oh, shots fired? Is that what happened?
Do I even have to
the
justify
way you
that
said
with
it? It could be like.
Oh, I just dropped my mixtape in the middle of Oxford Street. It was pretty fire. Shots fired because I dropped my
It
mix.
could have been misinterpreted. Have you ever seen the movie Let Him Have It?
No.
It's the one where there's the big deal on. It's the guy who's Christopher Eccleston plays him.
Yes. Ninth Doctor.
And he goes there's a big scene. This happened in real life, by the way. It's based off a true story.
Right.
Where this man, Christopher Eccleston and his friend, they're young boys, like teenagers, and they had guns on them in Britain. This would have been at the time where, like, I guess they were legal, or it could be easily
Were
smuggled.
guns ever legal?
I don't know. But in this movie, all the kids had them,
Yep.
so they either had them or they smuggled them. So, but anyway, it gets to a point where it's like they're on the roof and there's the police officers, and the kid has the gun, and Christopher Eccleston says, "Let him have it." And it's been up for debate. Did he say, "Let him have the gun, put the gun down, give it to him," or "Let him have it, shoot him"? And then Christopher Eccleston's character gets executed.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, the kid didn't. The one that shot him didn't, because he was too young. Christopher Eccleston's met the execution age, and that was briefly around the time execution became capital punishment became wasn't a thing anymore. So just before that, just before capital punishment. So maybe the 60s.
That was a dark turn.
Yeah. So yeah, it could have been the same thing where somebody was like, shots fired.
I don't think shots fired quite fits that market, but I'll take it.
Okay, so you're claiming people actually heard shots?
Well, someone says, there's reports of shots being fired. I can't do this story anymore. It was just someone who dropped a very fire mixtape in the middle of central London. It was nothing to do with the gunshots. It was just a mixtape.
He just dropped a mixtape and everyone misinterpreted it. That's what I thought happened.
I just imagine it being like two friends walking down the streets of Oxford Street, and one of them saying, "Did you hear his mixtape?" "Oh, there were shots being fired, mate." That mixtape.
Police said what?
And then someone in the background just hearing that, going, "No, shots, everyone get down." Okay, we shouldn't make light of a situation like that.
Well, I mean, nobody died, did they?
No one. Apparently a woman was injured, but that's it. That's all that happened.
We can't make it too dark. Then.
So, customer incident. London Fire Brigade sent 50 firefighters to the station. All of this is really weird. It's just really weird.
It's just, I mean, to be fair, I can understand that kind of reaction, especially with the recent attacks that have been happening this year.
That's what I'm trying to say. London is just looking like a massive hotspot.
Yeah, well, it happened in Manchester too.
It did,
first,
yeah.
rather.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
That was the start of the big attacks, wasn't it? And then it happened, was it?
No, there was one that happened in London a few years ago before that.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the ones this year.
Oh, okay, this year, yeah.
Because if it happened a few years ago, I'm sure that it kind of would have slightly died down. But it's the fact that we've had this our third. Well, I mean, this wouldn't count as an attack.
No.
But this to the people would have been the third or fourth time they would have been
or incident in London. Though
yeah. It's really, I guess I could understand why it's a very scary time of year.
But relating it back to Black Friday, because this was one of the times where people would be out and shopping in person, going to grab the items, and then something like this happened.
I thought they were at a circus.
What? No, Oxford Circus.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, do you not know what Oxford Circus is?
I guess not, no. I thought they were at a circus.
No, Oxford Circus
I thought you said a circus in Oxford.
No!
Okay, you meant Oxford Circus.
Yeah, in central London.
Oh, I'm sorry, I sound daft now.
No.
So there was people at a circus firing their mixtapes at people. That's what, in my mind, that's what was going on. Oh my god.
Are you being for real?
The mixtapes one, no. This one, yes, I was.
Okay, so according to Nezar, a bunch of people went to a circus.
Yes.
A few mixtapes were dropped.
Somebody said shots fired.
The police were called.
Yeah.
Oh god, right. But relating it back to the whole physical presence being there, and it's weird. Now you start to see the prevalence of dangers happening when you go outside in London. What would you say to that? You agree?
As I said, it's a very bad time of year for the people of London. Specifically, especially because shootings have happened this year. So I could understand why somebody saying shots fired would scare like a lot of people like that.
Right.
Definitely, because is it me? Did it happen twice this year?
What, the stabbings?
Well,
Not necessarily shootings.
there was a shooting this year, wasn't there?
Was there a shooting in America?
No, in
the UK?
Yeah, in London.
I thought it's the stabbings.
Okay, sorry, I thought there was a big terrorist debacle. Do you remember shortly after Manchester Arena, the concert,
arena, yes.
after it got bombed? I thought shortly after in London, there was a shooting happened, and a lot of people were hiding in pubs and stuff. And,
I don't know if that was a shooting or a stab. I think it was a stabbing because there was a person running around with a knife, and then
if it was a stabbing, surely it wouldn't have been that big. People wouldn't have been cowering in pubs and stuff.
If there's a man running around with a knife stabbing people, you definitely run away and hide away.
I guess so, but I swear I heard it was. I'm sure that happened though.
Oh, we
positive.
We have the power of the internet to find it out. Although let's not find that out.
Yeah.
Let's not.
It's old news.
It's not just that. It's just a bit grim to go through that again, because no.
This is meant to be the chill section,
and we end up going into the darkest of the universes. Well, let's move it on to something that. Okay, this story made me particularly angry over the. So this. This involves a university in Canada. Are you ready for this? And I might get a bit heated here because I really didn't like reading this.
Is this our last topic for the chill section, or do we have another?
If you want to bring up another one, we'll see how long this one goes.
Yeah, we'll see how long this lasts.
So, this involves Laurier University in Canada. So what happened was that a graduate student, whose name is Lauren Shepard, had a class, a debate tutorial class, where she presented a debate from a TV show called The Agenda in regards to gendered pronouns. She was presenting a discussion in regards to gender pronouns. Now, let me just alliterate that this is not us talking. We're not talking about gender pronouns here. We're talking about what the university did. We're not getting into that discussion. But she presented a video to the class, and I'm sure that some of the students in the class felt a bit uncomfortable about that. So what they did was they contacted the principal or the head or whoever was responsible for that. Following that class, Shepard was contacted to meet with her supervising professor, an associate professor in communications, and the manager of gendered violence prevention and support. Now, during that, she was then interrogated for 45 minutes, through which she was being I wouldn't say attacked, but she was being accused of being against gender. I don't know what the term is, the technical term is for that, but being against gender neutrality and that discussion. She was accused of being a right wing. She was what they were saying was, because I listened into the transcript themselves, and they're basically just saying a bunch of stuff. They were trying to find things to stick to her. They were trying to constantly find things to attack her with, to accuse her of. And she was just like, no, I'm not these things. I'm none of these things. She herself says she's a leftist. See, she herself said that she brought this video in because she wanted to promote a discussion. She wanted to engage in a debate with her fellow classmates around this topic. And she understands that some of them might have felt uncomfortable about it, but that's what university does. It's meant to challenge your understandings of certain things, of not certain things, of everything. As you grow up as an individual, depending on what you study, university is there to challenge your ideas about society, about what you know, about what we see in the world. And even if she didn't bring that video into class, this is something we already see outside in the world. If you leave the university, you'll see this video, you'll see people speaking up against this or people speaking up against that. Now, that's not to say that everything is okay to discuss at university. There are, of course, some things that are 100% not okay to try and legitimize at university. She wasn't legitimizing it, she was just bringing up a discussion. But the university, sorry if you wanted to say something.
I was just going to ask, do we know, so what subject was it?
I have no...
Okay, so we don't know the subject. Do we know the exact contents of the video?
So there was a debate between two professors, so one named Jordan B. Peterson and Nicholas Matt, over the use of gendered pronouns. So that was what the video was.
Okay.
It was just a video of that.
What were the students feeling uncomfortable about?
Probably the fact that she brought this into class. Or probably the fact that she was talking about, because one of the professors is quite controversial. He obviously is against the use of gender pronouns. I believe he says that he or she should just be the thing. There shouldn't be anything else.
And the students were feeling uncomfortable about that.
And one of them, or a few of them, because even in the interrogation, they wouldn't specify how many students approached the teachers to say they were uncomfortable with this. But yeah, I'm guessing some of the students felt uncomfortable about that. Now,
okay, you can continue.
This girl was crying throughout the entire transcript because she was being interrogated.
The teacher?
Yeah, the teacher. She was in tears throughout the entire thing because they were constantly interrogating her, constantly attacking her, constantly just trying to throw stuff at her. And that's what got to me. It really got to me because when I was listening to the transcript, you could hear but you see this, but you see that, but you see, like they were constantly trying to find things to stick to her. But she clearly was none of those things.
Did she lose her job?
Well, from the outcome from this is that, from what we've seen, the university has apologized for how the meeting proceeded. And for comparing one of the professors, the Peterson professor, who's a bit controversial, to Adolf Hitler. So he did that as well. Again, the university itself also issued an apology to all students, saying, after listening to this recording, an apology is in order. The conversation I had does not affect the values and practices to which the university aspires. I'm sorry it occurred in the way that it did, and you regret the impact that it had on Lauren Shepard. You will convey your apology to her directly. One of the professors that was questioning her has also chosen to apologize to Lauren about the way the meeting was conducted. Now, okay, so that's their apology, but to me personally, I'm mad.
Yeah, it's really stupid. I mean, she definitely deserves to be apologized to after how they treated her. That's. It's getting to a point where it's like, it's getting to a point where you gotta. How do I say this without offending anyone? Well, you gotta take that on the chin. People are gonna discuss this stuff. Are you gonna walk outside one day and just expect nobody in your perfect little world to not talk about gender pronouns? Let's say you are sensitive about this issue. Let's say you don't want to be referred to as a boy or girl, and that's fine. But you can't. Look, you're saying people were made uncomfortable by that, right? Yeah, but let me put some context. So we're not talking about the whole issue regarding gender pronouns. No, I'm talking about this class specifically. Yeah. Okay, this class specifically. My argument is the way the university treated this individual. Yeah. That's what my ire. I don't want to get into the whole discussion regarding gender pronouns. No, of course not. My problem is that's not what I'm getting into. The class themselves are partly to blame to this because you shouldn't feel uncomfortable about that kind of thing. Right. If you're willing to, if you're okay, as I said, gender pronouns, whatever you want to label yourself as, that's fine. Yeah. That's 100% fine. But you have to be that class specifically, you have to be people are going to talk about it. Right. That's unavoidable. It's like the discussion on if God doesn't exist or not. People are going to talk about it. Imagine if you were watching a debate or... That was weird. You were watching a lecture and let's say you're a religious man and somebody gave a reason why God doesn't exist and you're like, well, that offends me. That's stupid. It's that's a discussion. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You shouldn't get offended at that kind of thing. If that person to you is being ignorant and you don't like their opinions, then say they're ignorant and you don't like their opinions. That's it. You shouldn't have to get upset, especially with the teacher. She just presented the argument, the video, right? Yeah. That's all she did. Yeah, she didn't argue in favor of it or anything. She just presented the video. It's really, really daft that happened, and that's and the way she was treated. That's not okay. And she, as I said, it's really ridiculous that it'd get to a point where people of course, you know what, if somebody was insulting you, you would get offended by that, and that's fine. You can 100% get offended by that. If the teacher turned around to her and said, you're stupid for thinking this, I would have been okay with that. I mean, in terms of them telling her off or getting her in trouble, because she's not allowed to say that, but that didn't happen. She presented a video from a neutral standpoint, I assume one person was arguing for, one person was arguing against.
Not even that. She just presented the video to engage discussion. I don't know if it was 1 for or 1 against. She was just wanting to. Maybe it could have been like, oh, put this video up. What do you think of it? It's
like I don't get it personally. That sounds like. That's a controversial ground in general, but like you shouldn't get offended by something like that.
So Lindsay, the teacher, posted a tweet saying, those claiming I have a right-wing agenda, unfortunately you have missed the point. Freedom to circulate ideas and debate current affairs is everyone's issue. I am a leftist, but I do not represent the leftism of the professors who questioned her, who believe in shutting down opposition. That is where my ire lies. Because again, okay, let me ask you, what is your view on freedom of speech at university?
Okay. Let's go back to the subject, right? Let's say it was politics.
Yep.
Freedom of speech, 100%. That's free reign. Especially if it was politics, because that's what a large part of politics is. There's a lot of debating in there, and there's a lot of viewpoints in there. Free speech is allowed. Obviously, okay. I might contradict myself here. You shouldn't be saying very like.
That's exactly what I was good, because politics encompasses so much. If someone stands up in the middle of class and speaks in favor of extremism, what would you do?
That's true. I guess you can't technically do anything to him.
But again, it's like there's a difference between freedom of speech and hate speech.
That's true.
But that difference is so subjective.
We need to make that clear. There is a difference between hate speech and if you need to present all your things neutrally. That's how it is. Basically, you can present your viewpoint, but just don't attack anyone with it. So, for example, let's go back to the gender pronouns one. He presented it like you give 2 points. Here's the reasons why it shouldn't be this way. Here's the reasons why it should be that way. But you're not actively going up to the people and saying they're wrong for thinking this.
Right.
I'd say that's hate speech once you start calling people out and calling people stupid for thinking something that you're not. And honestly, with the way this has done, it's making left wing. It's not making them look good. It makes them look really. In this particular situation, it makes them look rash, quick to jump at somebody who disagrees with them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not making yourselves look good by doing that.
Yeah, it's. Again, it comes back to the whole idea of what can you say at universities or what versus what can't you say at universities.
Yeah.
Can you? And just to reiterate, anything that is said here is our viewpoint. Doesn't reflect our university. Doesn't reflect the radio show. Because I know that this is a heated topic and it tends to come back to bite people quite quickly.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just going to state that my ire is with the way that university sat this person down for 45 minutes and straight up interrogated her uncomfortably by herself. No lawyer, no nothing. No, nothing.
Not even about a viewpoint.
Not even about a viewpoint. Just like 3 people sitting in front of you and lambasting you about you bringing in a video to class.
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
And it
I guess for future reference, ask if it's okay to present. That's all I can say.
Ask if it's okay to present.
Like maybe like her superiors or something like that.
But then. It limits discussion though.
It does limit discussion, but it's the only way we're going to be able to get out of situations like this. How can you talk?
Like if let's say everyone was in favor of socialism, or no, let's say everyone is in favor of capitalism. You bring in a video saying, "Oh, socialism isn't that bad," but you yourself don't support socialism. But you just say socialism is that bad. Here's a video that says it isn't that bad. Here's the benefits of socialism. Here's the benefits of capitalism. And then someone in class says, you know what, you can't say that. And then gets the teacher to take you into supervision or you get interrogated. That's not fair.
I think it's going to get to a point, like, if it keeps going the way we're doing, we're not even going to be allowed to learn about this stuff in history.
So we're not even going to be allowed to learn.
So, when you're not allowed to learn about communism because that's the teacher implanting communist into your mindset.
I don't know. When I was watching this whole thing, it really made me really angry.
It is really aggravating, and I can see why you'd think that, especially because it's not a good thing to do, is it? It's sitting down somebody just because they didn't think what they were doing was wrong. That's the thing.
No.
They thought that it would present a discussion, but it didn't. Somebody got upset about it.
Again, I want to hear your opinion. So if you have Twitter, tweet at us to LCRTT Talk, because I want to hear people's opinions on this, because this is actually an issue that I think is relatively important. So let me pose the question to you. What is your stance on freedom of speech in universities? Because it's it's an important thing.
It is an important thing, and it's been we're getting less and less of it every year.
Since 70s or no, the university has always been about discussions and everything. Movements have started at university that questioned the opposition, that questioned the powers, that questioned everything from the leadership to everything. But now it's just, I don't know.
I'd say freedom of speech is used when it's convenient for people. That's what I'd say.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd say when it's convenient, when people find something to latch on to, something that goes against, like, the man, the big person, then, you can latch on to that. That's freedom of speech. But then when you start talking about stuff, like, when it gets to points where you're just bringing up a point on, like, why does somebody think like this, it gets to a whole new level of, like, controversy.
I think it's also to do with how quick we label people.
How quick,
for example, because she brings in a video about this one controversial person, she's labeled a right wing. She's labeled as someone who's against gendered prenorms and the whole spectre of that.
Yeah.
But again, when you label someone really quickly, you ignore a lot of the things surrounding that, a lot of the nuisance, a lot of the issues regarding that, because you just quickly slap a label on something.
I think people that slap labels on stuff like that, like, as a politics student, does that bother you? That somebody would just be like, well, you're left wing, you're right wing.
Yes.
Because that's somebody who's not studied the subject. Mm-hmm. That's somebody who's not studied what they actually are, like left wing or right wing, and that's just labeling someone as it genuinely sounds like, when people do that, it sounds like you're genuinely stupid. Like, when you just label somebody like that, it sounds like somebody who knows nothing about politics, in my opinion.
To me, yeah, when you label, and I'm going to confess, I'm 100% guilty of committing the crime on my own at points.
Everyone is.
I'm hypocritical as can be, Yeah, I'm committed it on my own. Of course, once I started learning about this stuff, I've been a lot more wary of it. So when I accuse someone of being something, I always think about it later on and say, you know what, maybe they're not like that.
Yeah,
definitely not like that.
It's more of a spur of the moment kind of thing.
But when someone slaps a label on something, then I do kind of see a problem with that. But instead of seeing not always a problem, what I see is a reason to investigate more.
Yeah.
So, for example, the whole Brexit debate.
Yeah.
A lot of people labeled people who voted in favor of Brexit as people who were against immigration, racists, xenophobes.
Which isn't true.
Which isn't true, because again, you have to see a lot of the nuances behind why they voted that. Yeah. Were they misled? Did they believe in a certain thing? What's the culture around their town? Because once you start to look at these kinds of information and statistics, you're trying to see that there's a lot of there's a variety of reasons why someone would vote in favor of Brexit.
Yeah, if it was as that said, we know people we have friends that did vote to leave, and imagine if we just labelled them as racists and stuff, we'd probably not be friends with them anymore.
Exactly. So you have to see a lot of what is behind the reason why they did it, because that's where you get their understanding from, and it allows you to still be people around each other.
Yeah, I definitely think it. I think everyone's guilty, I'd say, of labeling. I think it needs to be something that stops, but I don't think it will, because it's
just easy.
It's human nature, isn't it?
It's easy to put into 120 characters on Twitter.
Exactly. It's easy to say somebody.
Was it 240 now?
Like, when you think of stereotypical, like, dumb, like, when you think of stereotypical, like, dumb American military man, you think, like, the people that go, you commie, or stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's people I think of when it comes to, like, labeling people's political beliefs. Like, you don't agree with me, you communist, stuff like that. As I said, we just shouldn't be doing that. Educate yourself before you slap a label on somebody.
And we see this in regards to religion as well. A lot of people, when they find out that you're religious, they're just like, oh, this person clearly hasn't got their mind in the right place or something. Yeah. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, that's
recently.
Definitely.
Like, if you're religious, they tend to interrogate, why do you believe in religion? Why do you believe in that when, there's no thing, there's no such thing as God? It's just like, well...
Yeah. It's definitely not on the. It's getting to a point where I don't think it's getting. That's not too bad, but you'll definitely get people, like the fedora tippers.
Oh my gosh!
Who will?
Yeah, you're labeling someone. There you go. You're already beginning labeling people.
You know who I mean. The people who are like, I'm a level 3, ranked 5 non-believer. Why do you believe in this? But like, I have loads of friends a majority of my friends surely don't believe in any religion,
Right.
and they're chill with like people with religion. So it's like, you know, I think it's getting to a point where it's like you do get people who do that, and you also like people are just more understanding. That's the point, though. You got to be understanding of other people's beliefs.
Right. Yeah, we all got to learn to coexist.
Yeah.
There's no reason to jump or kill or attack anyone just because they have a different belief from what you do.
And that's going back to labeling, isn't it? Labeling it's just a bad thing to do. You see somebody with a different belief than you, and you automatically think bad of them.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the case in religion and politics
And ideologies in general.
ideologies. Yeah. It's really bad how like I haven't got too much into this myself, because when it comes to politics, I like to stay, even though I'll admit what side of the spectrum I'm on, I don't tend to criticize much on any people, and I don't tend to get criticized much for it, because, you know, usually you start stuff, but it's weird, like, how people can, like, stop talking to each other over, like, different political beliefs, and like, how heated that stuff can get. It's ridiculous,
and
I think.
It's also getting to a point where people just straight up just don't talk about things anymore because they're afraid of getting labeled a certain way. People won't engage in discussions. God forbid the amount of times I've probably sat in a classroom or something because my viewpoint doesn't match someone else's in the classroom, or the most popular viewpoint in the classroom.
People don't want to be presented with new ideas. They like to surround themselves with people of the same beliefs and same views, and just all be yes men to each other, basically. Like, nobody, let's say a bunch of like people who supported Labour, for example, obviously they're all going to agree with each other, and they a lot of them won't. There's a lot of people who don't want to hear like the viewpoint of a conservative,
right,
or someone else that's like, hey, maybe this isn't the way it should be. Maybe, you know, people just want to be like, no, this is how it works, and obviously vice versa. It's ridiculous that people aren't open to discussion like that, especially, I don't know how it works for politics students. I've never taken politics, but surely you'd have to get used to that kind of thing, right? Like, hearing other people's opinions.
It happened a lot in first year. Yeah, we tend to have people from both sides of the argument. Labour saying this, Labour supporters saying this, and then Conservative supporters saying this. And it does get, at times it does get heated, but again, it depends on where you are, because it's not going to happen in a lecture. It'll probably happen in a tutorial or a class or a seminar.
It doesn't matter, because obviously you're gonna, when it comes to beliefs is a very special thing to a lot of people. I'd say it's probably, beliefs and values are like some of the most important things to people, so I can understand you getting heated about it, but I don't think you should necessarily label somebody for that, or like be too bad to him for having a different belief.
Right.
Like, I've had friends that I've argued with about beliefs, and at the end of the day, you know, you learn to coexist. You don't believe what I do, whatever.
Exactly. Don't force your ideas or thoughts upon others. It's just, you have your ideas that come from somewhere else, and you just learn to coexist like that.
Yeah, just don't go around saying that other people's beliefs are wrong, or like other people's viewpoints in politics are wrong, because then you're the bad person for doing that. I'd say so, if you're instigating it.
Right. Do you think that's a good point to leave it there?
Yeah, it ended heavier than I thought it would.
Well, we could we'll end it heavy, or we could bring up a lighter news of the South Korean person, the North Korean person who escaped into South Korea.
We only have 3 minutes, don't we?
Well, let's do the quick round wrap up. So, what happened? A North Korean military man has escaped from North Korea, and he ran towards the South Korean border over the demilitarized zone. But as he was doing it, he was being shot at by North Korean forces. Did he survive? What do you think?
No.
He actually managed to survive. He's currently in a hospital watching American films. His favorite film so far is Bruce Almighty.
Really?
Yes.
That's okay. What a story!
Oh my gosh.
What a story, Mark.
The video itself is quite riveting, though. Seeing him drive a jeep through the North Korean borders.
You can see him getting shot at.
You can see him getting shot at as well.
Amazing.
So what happens is he drives a jeep, and then suddenly he stops driving the jeep and then starts to run towards the South Korean border. Then the North Korean military men shoot across the demilitarized zone, which is not supposed to happen according to an armistice that they agreed to. So they start shooting at this man. And then a while later, you start to see this man lying down on the floor, clearly injured, near the South Korean border. And then you get like this thermal vision thing come on, and you start to see these men crawling towards him, South Korean like soldiers come in and grab him and drag him in. And now he's perfectly fine in the hospitals in South Korea. So some good news.
Happy for the guy.
Some good things.
He wanted to get out of that, that situation. That's fine.
Some good things have happened in this world. It's not all negative. It's not all bad news.
No, it's just we always talk about bad news.
Because that's what else it always happens.
Yeah, that's true. Trump hasn't done anything amazing recently, so we don't have any like jokey topics to talk about.
Okay, and on that bombshell, I think we're going to call it for there. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Nezar for being my host.
Thank you so much for having me on, Fritz.
And Ruben, if you're listening, you better come back. We know where you are.
Please.
But that is all from us. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll hopefully see you next week. This has been Tea Time Talk. Over and out.